YouTube, what the zombie apocalypse is going on? HeirofCarthage here, and that's exactly what this is literally a skeleton and zombie apocalypse. We are talking about a massive army of chaff from the vampire counts. There are 3 players playing as the vampire counts, 2 as the main faction Sylvania, and then a couple as, then 1 as Musion, and they're playing up against some strange allies here. Allies that you wouldn't typically see together, I guess, but we've got the Warherd of the Shadowgave, Clan Moors, and the Dwarves here. I don't know what they call this faction now. Is it oh. Why can't I remember the name? Anyway, it's the Dwarves. They're here and they're led by Grombrindle. So we've got Ikit, Grombrindle, and Morgur up against Isabella. And then let's catch the rest of the Vampire Lords. Yeah, there's Isabella with her 2 vampire heroes supporting. And then we've got Heinrich Himmler, who will be summoning Krell, and a Strigoi Ghoul King in the back. Now, you can see the battle's underway. Let's jump back and see what happened. All right, here we are back at the beginning. Let's just get a quick overview of what these armies look like, how they're composed, and how it looks like they're going to be trying to fight. The Dwarves are interspersed with the Skaven here as kind of a really missile-heavy main contingent here, and I mean very missile-heavy. First, we'll take a look at their infantry across the front. Going to be some Longbeards mixed in with Clan Rats, a very odd mixture indeed. There are some Dwarf Warriors, there are Slayers in the back, and you can see that there's also some units of Rangers, and they are all protecting this very powerful yet very vulnerable missile core. There's more Rangers over here, so it looks like a couple of Rangers on either flank. There are some Deathglobe Bombardiers. These are armor-piercing magic ammunition type skirmisher units, and they are in here as well with Rattling guns, including the Teeth Breakers on the other flank. And remember, the Rattling guns have a suppressive capability that slows down enemies as they're trying to approach. We've got the Avalanche Mortars. This is some heavy missile damage, better against infantry. And then there's the similar thing behind them, the Poison Wind Mortars. Again, similar, but not the Regiment of Renown version. And then we've also got Ikit Claw himself next to Ikit Claw's Zap Zap Warp Lightning Cannon. So, and they are backed up by 2 flame cannons and a Plague Claw catapult. Not only that, wait, there's more. There's a Cygor. They have a Cygor, folks. So we do have a giant rock-lobbing angry creature in the back. And then look at the army by the Warherd of the Shadowgave. Also very interesting here. We got several units of Chaos Spawn up front, backed up by Razor Gore herds. And then we've also got Korok's Man Rippers. Now remember, this is basically a halberd unit of Bestigor. And then we've got Morgur and a giant here, a Beastmen giant. So an interesting flank, especially if they expect to be coming up against vampire chaff. This is actually pretty good Beastmen units because they don't break. And then you'll be able to summon a couple of more, and you've got a lot of anti-infantry, light anti-infantry capability. Now, as far as the vampires, oh, and there's this out front too. 3 units of Ungor Raiders being led by 4 units of miners with blasting charges. Now, if we take a look, the 2 armies of Sylvania are literally just tons of zombies, skeleton warriors, skeleton spears, more zombies. There are dire wolves, bats, Isabella with her both shadow and death vampires that are with her in the air. There's a corpse cart, more bats, blood knights, Vargulf, and then there's going to be more blood knights in the back, and they are being supported by Heinrich Himmler, who, remember, does have a horse, and he can get around the battlefield rather quickly. There are some heavier infantry around. We do have Stearnsman Graveguard, and then a few standard units of Graveguard hanging out in the back, and then over here, more blood knights, and we've got the Chillgeist Hex Wraiths, and then Strigoi Ghoul King, and a couple of units to take note of here are these White Kings. These guys are really good versus infantry, and they have an excellent shield. It doesn't look like much other than old rotting vampire wood, but it's silver rated. So these guys are able to block a lot of missile fire, and they are very good support for chaff units because they can actually do some damage, and they'll be somewhat protected. Now, let's get the battle underway. Right off the bat, I want you all to see, let's just take a look at the numbers game here too. Look at this. This is almost 6,000 vampires versus 2,500 dwarf, rat, beastmen type alliance. But let's just get an idea of how much fire this vampire chaff is going to be under as they approach the enemy lines, and it is going to be significant. Now remember, this is zombies though, And these are all like huge unit settings too, so this is going to be an epic battle. All the corpses are going to stay right where they go. So you all are going to get an epic battle here. That initial blasting charge volley was just brutal. And zombies, of course, are slow. This is going to allow even dwarves to be able to flee back away from them and put some distance as they work back to their defensive positions and allow the artillery barrage to start to do its work. Now, whether or not it's worth it to fire at these zombies, I mean, you do have ammo, you gotta spend your ammo, so even though it's zombies, you probably do want to go ahead and start cutting through some of the chaff. But when the Grave Guard get in range, you would hope to see that the Grave Guard become the next target, or anything that's anti-large being targeted on Blood Knights or Hex Wraiths, or especially magic damage would be targeted towards the Hex Wraiths. Now these mortars put on quite a show here. Very cool units. I love that CA added these. It's a really spectacular unit to just kind of watch. The Avalanche mortar is the one that's a little more interesting. The Poison Globe ones are cool, but the Avalanche with the air burst spread that comes down, it's pretty sweet. Now the flame cannons are gonna begin, and the flame cannons are just tremendously good anti-infantry units. I mean tremendously good. You got to be very careful. In a setting like this, it would not be unusual to see them rack up 400 or 500 kills as long as they're given a little bit of time to do so. You can see the rattling guns suppressing these bats, and then everything else opening fire. Just watch the bats dropping out of the sky. They won't last long in this melee, though. Some did land over here in a little bit better shape. And early on, out in the back, let's go take a look at this. I'm going to tab out. Some Korok's Man-Rippers went out chasing. Or sorry, a Razor Gourd herd went out chasing some vampire units. You never ever want to chase vampire units like this. They don't rout. And even if you have a unit that you think counters them well, you got to deal with summons and potentially being overwhelmed by units that, like I said, they're not going to run away. So you have to be very careful about it. Look at this Chaos Spawn summon, very nicely blocking the flank here. These skeleton spears, not going to let them pass. And then the main infantry line begins to engage. The Beastmen are going to hold really, really well because of all these Chaos Spawn against the chaff. It's going to take the vampires a good long time if they can deal with that from the Beastmen. But the zombie apocalypse is on, folks. The skeleton zombie apocalypse, it is real. Oh, I missed the warp fire throwers earlier. There's warp fire throwers. As if this battle couldn't get any more visual. It just did. You can see Strigoi there under some heavy fire. I am down to 24 frames because of the intensity of this battle. And this is on a pretty dope system. I'm going to see over here that the vampires are trying to cause some havoc back here within the skirmishing lines, so they drop a purple sun. Doesn't end up doing too terribly much, but you can see the harassment of the vampire cavalry is on in full. They know they have to get in here and get some of these units out of the way, but you can see just the pile of corpses back here in the desert, just as a testament to the amount of artillery barrage that was going on early. Now comes the tricky part, right? You've damaged a vampire force, but they don't rout. You've got to keep fighting and keep fighting them, and you really have to kill their leadership if you want to have any chance of making their armies crumble. And so can the odd alliance of dwarves, Skaven, and Beastmen fight back the vampire tide? And as we're on this flank, it's actually going decent for the Beastmen, despite a really significant fight here. The Grave Guard have moved up as well. So there's some tough units, and the Chaos Spawn are definitely starting to feel it, but I mean, they are killing a lot of chaff. All of them well over 100 kills. And then even look at this, the Bray Shaman, Lord of Beast, already 215 kills too. And then Morgar's going to jump in. He's got 74. I mean, these units are really pouring it on, but there are so many vampire units that this flank has been circumnavigated here by the vampires, and they are starting to get into the back lines. And you can see kind of desperate attempts by the skirmishing corps of this army to stay alive and to keep laying down fire on everything that they can. The flame cannons have been firing non-stop into the vampire infantry and have been racking up significant kills. If we take a look here, 355 kills for one, 523 for another, but the pressure from the vampires is very real here in the back lines. There are zombies moving in, the dire packs back here chewing on rangers. There's two more dire wolves back here, and then not far away, blood knights are ripping through the Cygor. And then Heinrich Kimmler's here. He's still got a Krell summon that he can use as well. And Krell would probably be best used to tear down an enemy leader, considering what the Kimmler is up against at this point. Either the enemy giant or an enemy leader. And I would say a leader is probably a better target. The Giant, you may be able to kind of work his leadership down over time, but anything they throw at him right now, that Beastman Giant's going to cause a lot of damage. The Vargulf has been a tough unit, though, for the Beastmen to deal with, and it's been after the Bray Shaman and doing some nice work. And as we just kind of pan through the battlefield, just look at the carnage here, folks. The sheer carnage of this battle is impressive. It is very impressive. Check it out here. You got Blood Knights that have worked their way in. Or no, these aren't Blood Knights. These are the Varix Reavers. Yep, not Blood Knights. Blood Knights would have had their red armor there. So the Avalanche Mortars finally being hit, 143 kills on them. Not near as impressive as what the Flame Cannons have been able to do. But, I mean, Flame Cannons going to be Flame Cannons. Now, this flank has been pretty much turned back. The Zombie Apocalypse has been mostly shut down. There's a few units here, like Corpse Cart with the Unholy Lodestone, and then you've got the Hex Wraiths here fighting Dwarf Infantry. And Hex Wraiths are a pain in the butt to deal with. If you don't have magic damage, it's just going to take a lot of time. Now, Isabella and her Vampires 3 here trying to get at Ikit, and this is probably a questionable move. Isabella's tough, and so are these Vampires to a degree, but landing here completely exposed. A little dangerous, even though Ikit's weak, because you never know what kind of support. I mean, Grombrindle's over here. He hasn't gotten thrown over here yet, but Ikit also has a fair bit of speed, and he's going to be able to get away while all of these skirmisher units are going to start to target. And there is a Howling Warp Gale on Ikit too, so very risky move indeed. You can see the Beastmen struggling to keep the fight going, but their Giant is still doing terrifically. Look at that, 218 kills on that Chaos Spawn, 207 on another. Just impressive performance. Impressive performance all around. Morgur was actually routed by Krell. I did miss that when we were panned over to the other side, but Krell was summoned as I expected he would be, and he just beat the crap out of Morgur. Krell is a very tough character. You have to be very careful. Kimmler is kind of worth it just on that alone. In fact, some people just put him on his horse with just Krell, and they'll bring other magic that they need, because Krell is so dang good if you use him right. There's some Dwarf Warriors headed out here to try and deal with what's left of the Vampires, but you can see the power bar souring against the home team here, we'll call them. The Dwarves, Rats, and Beastmen. And look, here's the Howling Warp Gale I mentioned. Isabella is clinging to dear life, or dear unlife, I should say, and Ikit's Zap Zap is making her, or sorry, that wasn't Ikit's Zap Zap, that was just his Doom Wheel right there. The Zap Zap, I think, was actually shut down by Direwolves, and Isabella very narrowly gets away with her unlife. She's actually right out here. Looks so similar to her vampire kin there. I mean, she is at 405 hit points. Like I said, barely clinging to unlife. Now, the Vargulf is going to be a problem. Not a lot of units left that can deal with it. You can see the flame cannons shooting at it. They're going to have a hard time hitting it. If they do, it's likely to cause a decent bit of damage because the Vargulf is weak to fire. But it is a difficult shot to hit. See Grombrindle here fighting back against a White King. White King's actually a pretty good unit to be up in here. He gets a nice armor-piercing anti-infantry bonus, and it's not an ideal fight for Grombrindle, although Grombrindle could cause a lot of damage, and Vargulfs are notably good, too, at knocking Dwarf Lords around and causing a lot of damage to Dwarf Infantry, so a Vargulf being here this late in the fight should definitely be a concern. But these Giants being supported, or the Giant being supported by Longbeards, really a great situation. The two White Kings won't be particularly good at taking him down, and you can see why. Anti-infantry doesn't go very far against a Giant. Just look at the carnage on the battlefield behind this. Just absolutely extraordinary. This is, what? Almost 9,000, this is about 8,500 units, I think, that were on the battlefield. Roughly. 8,500 models. Huge battle. Huge battle. So you can see the avalanche mortars here just kind of unleashing on this blob, which honestly probably hurts the friendly units just about as bad as it's going to hurt the vampires here. Those Blood Knights are the one being targeted. Avalanche Mortar won't do a ton to them, but I mean, you got to do what damage you can do at this point if you want to have a chance to win it. Because if you look what's back here, you just have Ikit and some skirmishers who are mostly out of ammo, and they're not over here trying to support this fight still. And the vampires surprisingly letting this stuff just fire, but to be fair at this point, Vargulf and White King, not at terrible risk from that artillery. That artillery's done its damage already. And I don't think it's going to get near as much damage done at this point. Take a look at that Chaos, or the Beastmen giant, his large horns here. There are still a few dwarves around supporting him, but they're up against White Kings. Not a fight that they want to be in. And that corpse cart, I believe, is going to be, yeah, he's actively healing the units around it. So great support. Plus, I think it buffs their hit points, or sorry, their attack stats. As a risky move right here for the vampires to be sending units this close to the Beastman Giant. Even though his hit points are low, don't underestimate the amount of damage that this unit can put out. I mean, look, he just trashed the corpse cart, just put a huge hit on the White King. I guess they can probably overwhelm him with numbers maybe here. Look, another summoned zombie back here. This is just painful how many zombies you got to deal with. Look at that, the Giant just laying it on thick. Grombrindle, though, gets overwhelmed as expected. Look at this, the Vargulf almost fully healed again. And there's a corpse cart here too, so they're going to be healing the White King at the same time. So this is a very tough position. Very tough position for the yellow side of the bar here. Strigoi is in good health, and he's anti-large. Now, if you're going to beat the Giant, Strigoi would be the way to do it, rather than these other units. That anti-large attack and a quick charge off that Terrorgeist would probably pretty much get rid of the Giant for the most part. See, that Vampire and the White King did not like that fight. And here it comes finally. Strigoi lands in there, immediately gets about a 400 hit point smack, and then does even a little more damage. Now, of course, he's not immune to the Giant, but he's certainly in good shape as far as leadership and hit points go. He should be able to survive this fight. You can see, again, the Giant did put some pretty significant beat down on him in just a few hits. With that Giant, though, goes most of the hopes for what was left of the yellow team, and their troops are going to turn tail and run due to army losses. Really very little that they can do here. Look at these Blood Knights running down what's left. So this skirmishing contingent finally silenced. Let's just get a couple more good views of the carnage in the desert. There was a massive 8,500 model battle. Just absolutely beautiful. Absolutely love this. Thank you for those who submitted it. This was a submission from my Discord. If you have battles you want to submit, I love seeing stuff like this. Single, 1v1 team battles, FFA, it's all fun. Please submit whatever you want. It's going to be on my Discord. The link is in the description. Warhammer 2 replays thread, you can go post it there. Or if you don't want to do Discord, we'd love to have you there. But if you don't want to do the Discord, airtotalwar@gmail.com. You can always attach a replay there. There is like one Slayer left here, and he is quite the chap. Oh, what a way to go! What a way to end the battle. One more corpse for the pile. Vargulf just rips him apart. What? CA, please! Look at that. His half body was still alive. Is it still alive? No, there he goes. All right. Well, you all may not have known it, but Slayers have sworn such an oath that they can continue their work without their upper body. It's pretty impressive, wasn't it? Pretty impressive. CA, please. It was entertaining, seriously, though. So, Veggie Vampire, White Smoke, Jimmy, Lunastera, Sir Pantaloons, and Jacksaw. Thank you all for submitting or participating. Really appreciate. This one was actually dropped by White Smoke. So White Smoke, not a battle he won, but what an epic battle it was. Look at this. This is only 42 units remaining on the vampire side out of 6,000. Yeah, 6,000. I think that was roughly there. So wow, just wow. Talk about vampires going shaft. But hey, you're a vampire. Now that the battle's over, you just start using the magic and raising all of them again and just reanimating them. That's how vampires play. An interesting Veggie Vampire, not a vampire here, but look at the Bray Shaman kills and Chaos Spawn. What a pick. What a pick. Actually, a really good Beastman to take on this type of chaff. It wasn't enough in the end, but it was a really fun army. I think that losing his Man Rippers too early was a big mistake. Can't let those units, they do have immune to psychology as long as their frenzy is active, but remember, frenzy is no longer active under 50% leadership, and as you can imagine, getting hit by multiple vampire units that have scare or terror, you're not going to last long. And so this unit got terror routed and driven off very early when it would have been a very important unit to hold into the later game. And then we got White Smoke here. I love the initial combination of Ungor Raiders and Miners with blasting charges. I mean, it didn't like tilt the tide of battle, but I mean, part of winning this battle, you are going to have to kill however many thousand zombies and skeletons are out there. And so they did have to get their work going. And look at this, over 1,000 kills between the two flame cannons. So very fun use of flame cannons there. And then Jimmy Taz with his Ikat Claw army. I loved the mortars. The mortars made this battle like so wonderfully cinematic. The Teeth Breakers got unfortunately ended early in this conflict. Look at this other Warp Fire Thrower, 214 kills. This thing obviously got a hold of some zombies. The Rattling Guns here did pick up a chevron, unless it was given to them ahead of time. It's possible, but possibly did some really nice damage there. And then if we take a look at the Vampire armies, we don't expect to see near as many kills over here, but that's what a chaff army does, right? It's chaff. You're not going to be seeing like huge numbers of kills except for like a few monstrous units. Like, I mean, just look at the cavalry work here by Sir Pantaloons. Very nice job with the Dire Pack. This Vargolf was brutal. Doesn't have a ton of kills, but this thing did a lot of damage. And then supporting all that chaff with corpse carts, really pretty good idea to get a little more mileage. And I love the White King picks here because they have to be killed. They're extra leadership to help hold the vampire army together, and they're a pain in the butt to deal with under certain circumstances. Strigoi was safe in the air most of the time and able to help support his teammates. Anyway, thank you to everybody who played in this battle. Thank you for watching. HeirofCarthage signing off for now. Can't wait to see you all soon with some more Total War Warhammer 2 action.